Good morning, students. Welcome back to our discussion of object-oriented concepts and programming with C++. In today's class, I will be explaining about another unique feature of C++ language called friend function. In our last class, we learned about the purpose of static members of a class. Static member could be member data or member function. In case of static member data, only one copy of the data is created, and for every object, a separate copy of the member data is not created. All the object has to share the same member data. Similarly, in case of if the member function is static, then that member function can access other static data members of a class. We also learned about the purpose of const member function. If any member function is declared with the qualifier const, then that member function cannot modify or cannot alter any member data of that particular class. It can only access the member data. And we also learned about how member function can be nested, how one member function can be called within another member function. In today's class, we'll be learning about one unique feature of C++ called friend function, the characteristics of friend function, and how friend functions are used in a class. At the end of today's session, you will be in a position to understand the concept of friend function, the different characteristics of a friend function, and in what way a friend function is different from member functions of a class. Generally, any class includes certain data called member data and certain function called member function. Though generally, member data is declared with the access specifier private. That means the member data is accessible only within the class, that too for a member function. Only member function can access the private data of a class. But in some situation, sometimes we need to give the permission for a function which is not a member function. Still, we want to give the permission for that function to access the private data of that particular class. Such a function are called as a friend function. In general, the definition of a friend function is one. A friend function is not a member function. It's a non-member function of a class, but still can access the private data of the class. So generally, if the member data is private, then other than the member function, no other function can access that one because it is private to that particular class. But in spite of that one, a friend function, even though it's not a member function, still it can access the private data of the class. So to make an outside function friendly to a class, what we have to do is within the class, you write the name of the function, and before that one, you add the prefix called friend. So in that case, that function become a friend function for that particular class. So just similar to member function, even a friend function also can access the private data of the class. So in order to make any function as a friend function, you prefix the function name with the keyword friend. So member function can be defined either inside the class or outside the class. If you are defining a member function outside the class, you have to make use of scope resolution operator. In that case, the syntax is return type, the class name to which the function belongs, scope resolution operator, function name, and argument declaration. But a friend function is not a member function. In that case, you cannot define a friend function inside the class. A friend function has to be defined only outside the class. So later in the session, I will explain how friend functions are declared and how friend functions are defined in a program. So a friend function provides another way of accessing the private data members. The one thing is to remember that a friend function is a non-member function. Since it's a non-member function, there is no provision for you to define the friend function within the class. You cannot declare a friend function within the class. You have to define it only outside the class. Only the prototype, you have to mention it within the class. That too, before the function name, you add the keyword called friend, indicating that it can access the private data of that particular class. So these are some of the major characteristics of a friend function. So it is not in the scope of the class. So generally, only data members and the member function comes under the scope of the class. So the class include only certain data called member data and certain function called member function. So only member data and the member function are the part of the class. A friend function is not a part of the class. So it does not comes within the scope of the class to which it has been declared as friend. And generally, how do you call a member function of a class? So you can call it any member function of a class through the object. For example, if the class name is complex and if the member functions are read complex and write complex, and if the objects are C1 and C2, then we can call read complex and write complex function like C1 dot read complex or C2 dot read complex. Similarly, C1 dot write complex, C2 dot write complex. If you are using one more function called add complex, then you can call it like C3 dot add complex within the bracket C1 comma C2. So any member function, if you want to access, you have to first make use of one object, dot operator, and the function name. But a friend function is not a member function. So you cannot call a friend function with the object. So it's just similar to a normal function. Okay, it can be invoked like a normal function without the help of any object. If it is a member function, it's a part of that particular class. In that case, you can access, you can call that member function through some object. But friend function is not a member function, it's a non-member function. Means you cannot call it with any object. You call it directly, like you're calling other normal functions in C or C++. So it cannot access the member data directly, even though it can access the private data of the class, not directly. So generally what we have to do is, we are using any function, if you're making any function, the friend function means, then you have to pass some argument. The argument type must be the objects of that particular class. So if your class name is prime, then for the friend function, within the argument, you have to pass one object of the prime class. Then we can access any member data through the object. So it cannot access the member data directly, and it has to use the object name and the dot operator with each member. So later in the class, I'll give so many examples illustrating how a friend function can access the private data. Member functioning accessing the private data is very, very straightforward. Whereas friend function, if it wants to access any private data for a friend function, at least one argument, which is nothing but an object of that particular class. You have to pass one object. Then it can access any private data through the object you are passing. You are passing the object as D. And if the member data are A and B, then we can access A and B like D dot A, D dot B, etc. So, for example, if X is the object name, A is the private data name, then A can be accessed within the member within the friend function like X dot A. And usually for a friend function, at least one argument you have to pass it, which is nothing but an object of that particular class. So these are the 5 different characteristics of a friend function. A friend function does not come within the scope. It's not a member function. It cannot be called with any object. It can be called directly, but it generally we have to pass one object as argument, and using that object we can access the private data of that class. And in order to access any private data, it can access it only through the object name, not the member data name. Let us say some simple example illustrating how friend function is defined and how friend function is used. Write a program to check whether a given number is prime or not using friend function. Hash include iostream.h, hash include conio.h. These two are the two header files. The purpose you already know. Class prime. So here your class name is prime. Private int n. It has only one data member called n, which is declared under the access specifier private. And under the public, I'm declaring two functions, void read. So for the read function, I have not added the word called prime. It's a member function. Whereas the other function is prime check. That the function name is prime check. Within that one, you have to pass one argument, which is nothing but object of that particular class. What is the class name here? Prime. So prime and friend int. So here, the first function read is a member function, which comes under the category of function without any argument and without any return value. Whereas for the prime check function, since it is prefixed with the keyword friend, it returns a value of integer type, and accept one parameter or class object. So the given number is prime, it returns 1. The given number is not prime, it returns 0. So the return value, return type of the prime check function is 1 or 0, means it's an int. So if you remove that word friend, then prime check function also becomes a member function. Specifically, I'm making a prime check function as a friend main. So here one function, that is read, is a member function. Prime check function is a non-member function. Now close the class. Now how many functions should be defined? Two functions. One is read function, other one is prime check function. Read function is a member function. We already learned about how a member function can be defined outside the class. First, the return type. What is the return type here for the read function? Void the class to which read function belong. Prime, scope resolution, read. Open the bracket, see out, enter the number to check, C in N. So since read is a member function, it can access the member data N directly. So there we need not use any object. Now when we consider prime check function, which is what type of function? It's a member, it's not a member function, it's a friend function. See, in order to define a friend function outside the class, no need to use the word keyword again friend, and no need to use the scope resolution operator. Directly can start with the return type. The return type is int prime check. Within the parameter, you have to pass one object. Here the object name is x, which belongs to the class called prime. Now, which is the member data here? N is the member data. N is a member data. So read function can access N directly, whereas prime check function, since it's a friend function, it can access N always through X. So to start with, you take one variable called P equal to 1. Okay. Then how to check whether a given number is prime or not? Here the number I want to check is N. But a friend function can access N through X dot N. So in order to check whether a given number is prime or not, you take a for loop for int I equals to 0. I less than or equal to generally N by 2. But since N cannot be accessed directly by prime check function, it can access through X dot N by 2, I plus plus. Next. The syntax is if n percent, wherever n is there, in case of friend function, you write it as x dot n. That's the difference. Then if x dot n percentage I double equals to 0 means the number is divisible by some number. In that case, return 0. Otherwise, the loop goes for the next value for I 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Then finally, if the number is not divisible by any other number, means p value continues to be 1, return the value 1. So if 1 is returned by the function, means the given number is prime. If 0 is returned, means the given number is not a prime. So now we can observe two things here. Here, the friend function name is prime check. A prime check function can access the private data n only through the object you are passing as argument. Here the object I am passing is x, which belongs to the class prime. So in order to access n, you should always write it as x dot n. Directly, if it is a member function, then the way of writing is first the return type int class name prime scope resolution operator prime check, then open the bracket, close it. No need to use the object as parameter. There in that case, we can use the variable n directly for int I equals to 2, I less than or equal to n by 2 directly we could have used. But since a prime check function is a friend function, we have to access it through x dot n. Next. Then you can start the main function prime p. So P is the object of the class called prime. So see, read is a member function. In order to call read function, you can call it with through object name. Here the object name is P, P dot read. There you are inputting the value for n. See how we are calling prime check function. So for calling the prime check function, you are not supposed to call it like P dot prime check function, because you can directly call it as function name itself is prime check. Within the parameter, you can pass P, because the syntax of prime check function says that you have to pass one argument of prime. So here the argument is P, which is an object of prime class. Then if prime check function P, if you write like this, is equal to 1 only. If that is the case, given number is prime. Yes, the given number is not a prime. So now we can note down the difference between writing friend function or defining friend function and defining member function. Then calling friend function and calling member function. If member function, while defining it outside the class, the syntax is return type, class name, scope resolution operator, function name, then the argument if it is there. Whereas for friend function, straight away go for the return type, function name. Then within the parameter, you have to pass one object of the respective class name. Then A member function can access the private data directly, whereas a friend function can access the private data only through the object you are passing as an argument. Then, while calling the function, a member function should be called always through the object. In this example, the object name is P. So you can call the read function only as p.read, whereas a prime check function is a non-member function. It's a friend function, means you can call it directly prime check within the bracket. You have to pass the object. Object name is, here it is P. So in the previous example, I have considered a class called prime with one data called n and one function which is member function, and one function is a friend function. Now we'll take one more example where I'm having two different classes. In the previous example, I have only one class. Here I'm having two classes. In that case, we are writing a friend function, I have to pass two parameter. One parameter belongs to first class, other parameter belongs to the second class. Hash include iostream.h. Here the function is create a class to hold the information of a husband. What is the information of an husband? Husband name and his salary. So the first class name is husband, which has the private data, name and salary. And another class called wife. That is also class name. That also has data like name of the wife and the salary. The purpose is you should calculate the sum of the salaries of husband and wife. Next, hash include iostream.h, hash include conio.h. For the time being, don't bother about the first line, class 5 semicolon. You start with the first class. What is the first class name here? Class husband. So husband is one class and wife is one class. Okay. Under the private data, what is the member data of the husband? Name of the husband. It's a string type, and salary is a long integer type. Next, you write two functions. First function is read function, which is a member function. Display function, that is also a member function. But the last function, I want to find what? The salary of the husband plus the salary of the wife. So when you add the two salary, husband salary is also long integer type. The salary of the wife is also long integer type. When you add them together, it is long integer only. So the return type is long int. Function name. In this example, I've given the function name as total salary. And since we are using two different classes, because the friend function has to access what? The salary from the husband class and also the salary from the wife class. So it has to access the data for two different classes. Means have to pass two parameters. One is husband, other one is wife. So now we are in which class? Now we are still in husband class. So at that time, you are using the word called wife. So what is wife? That is also class. That is the reason. The first line I mentioned, class 5. That means within the husband, I'm using the word called wife, which is declared as class that I'm going to declare later. Now you start the second class. What's the second class name? Wife. Now you define the two functions. First function here, read function. Second is member function is display function. Okay, first you define these two functions. Void, return type is void. Class to which read function belong? Husband. Scope resolution, read. What is the purpose of read function? To input the name of the husband and the salary. See out, enter the name, see in name. Enter the salary, see in salary. Next. Similarly, you write the second function, void, husband, scope resolution, display. The purpose of this function is to display the name and the salary. Name of the husband is equal to name, salary of the husband is equal to salary. Okay. Now we have defined two member function outside the class. Next, you go to the second class. The second class is class wife, similar to husband class. For the husband class detail, name, salary, and the three functions are read, display, and total salary. Out of these three, first two are member function, and the last one is a friend function. Char name 20, long int salary. Again, public, void read, void display, friend, long int, total salary, husband, comma, wife. So now again, we have to first define the two member functions of wife class. One is read, other one is display. So you have to enter the name. Return type is void. Class name is wife. Read function. Name and husband. Next. Here, class void wife display. So here it's it's not the name of the husband. It is name of the wife. Name of the wife is equal to name. Salary of the wife is equal to salary. So it is not husband. It is wife. In both the cases, we change it to wife. Now what happens is we have defined the two member functions. One is read function, other one is display function. Now we have to define the third function called total salary. The total salary function has to access the data of husband salary and also has to access the data of wife salary. Okay. Since a total salary function is a friend function, straight away start with the return type. Here the return type is long int total salary function, and here that function takes two argument of first argument is an object of husband class, the second argument is an object of wife class. So husband h comma wife w. How to calculate the total salary? I told already. If the object friend function can access the private data only through the object name here, which is the object here, one is h object, other one is w object. So return h dot salary plus w dot salary. You return that one. So that becomes a long integer. Now we have defined, whereas the total salary function is common for both husband class and wife class. That's the reason I have defined it only once. Void main, then husband h, class name is husband, object name is h. Similarly, wife w. Here the object name is w and the class name is wife. Next, first enter the details of the husband means call read function with h dot read. Then again enter the details of wife w dot read. So now we have input the date, name and salary of the husband, also name and salary of the wife. Next, enter the next you display them. Details of husband call h dot display function. Similarly, details of y equal to w dot display. Now we have inputted the details of husband, we have inputted the details of wife, you have displayed the details of husband, you have displayed the details of wife. Right? Because you have respective function, you can call read function or display function, which you can call it either with h object or we can call it w object, because those two functions are member function. Now this is the way of calling a friend function. See out total salary of the family equal to there only you call the function name. What the function name? Friend function total salary. First object is h and the second object is w. The first example prime has only one class called prime, whereas in this example we have two different classes. One is husband class, other one is wife class. So the concept here is you declare a class called husband with the private data, name and salary, and you have to define three functions there. One is read function, display function, and the total salary function. Read and display are member function. Total salary is a friend function. But the total salary function has to access the details of both husband salary and the wife salary. You have to pass two objects. Similarly, you define another class called wife. Then within the wife class also the private data are name and salary. The three functions are read, display. These two are member functions, and total salary again is a friend function. So the total salary function is common for both husband class and wife class. So you have to define that function only once. Whereas read function have to define with respect to husband separately and also for wife separately. Similarly, display function also have to define it separately for husband and separately for wife. The syntax you already know. So these are some of the review questions based on today's concept. Illustrate with an example. Friend function in C++. What are the characteristics of friend function? In what way a friend function is different from member function of a class? The difference is a friend function is a non-member function. Member function is a member function. Next, a friend function has to be defined only outside the class. A member function can be defined either within the class or outside the class. Member function can be called through object, whereas a friend function can be called directly. A member function can access the private data directly, whereas a friend function can access any private data through the object which is passed as argument. So here, in the previous example, I have given one example illustrating friend function involving two classes. One is husband class, other one is wife class. And just exactly similar to that one, you can do it as an assignment. Declare a class called current account. So instead of husband, here we have current account. There, what are the details of husband class? Name and salary. Instead of name and salary, we have two members, account number and balance. Account number, you make it as integer. Balance, you make it as long integer. Okay. Similarly, declare another class called savings account. That also has what? Account number and balance as private data. And you use the first function, read, what? To read the account number and the balance. display to display the account number and balance for current account. Similarly, you start the second class, class savings account, private colon, same thing. Int account number, long int balance. Then void read, void display. But one friend function you have to write, just similar to this one. Yeah, the function is friend long int. It's not total salary, it is total balance. Within the bracket, you write the first one is current account, comma savings account. So wherever husband is there, you replace with current account. Wherever wife is there, you replace with savings account. Rest of the thing is same. Whereas the member data, here it is name and salary. In the exercise, first one is account number, that is int type, and long int. Instead of salary, you make it as balance. That's the difference between these two programs, exactly similar. So the program will be something like this. Hash include iostream.h, hash include Konya.h, class savings account, semicolon. Then you start class current account, define the class. Similarly, you define those two functions, read and display with respect to current account. Then start the class. Instead of wife, we have savings account. The rest of the details are common for both savings account and current account. First, you define the read function. Then you define the display function. Then you go to calculating the long int, total balance, savings account, current account C, comma, savings account yes, return C dot balance plus S dot balance. Let us consider some simple multiple choice question. A friend function is called through object name and dot operator. True or false? A friend function cannot be called with object name. It has to be called directly. The answer is B. Identify the incorrect statement. A friend function is a member function. No, that's a wrong statement. A friend function is defined outside the class. True. A friend function is called without object name. That is also true. A friend function can access private data. That is also true. Only incorrect statement is A. A friend function is called using scope resolution operator. False. Which of the following statement is not true regarding friend function? Declared with the keyword friend. True. Cannot be defined inside the class. True. Access member data through object pathless argument. That is also true. It is in the scope of the class. No, it is not in the scope of the class because it is not a member function. A friend function is defined outside the class with the following syntax: return type, class name, function name, argument. That is the syntax for defining member function outside the class. The correct syntax for defining a friend function outside the class is return type, function name, and argument. The correct answer is B. Okay. In today's class, we learned the definition of friend function. A friend function is a non-member function, but similar to member function, it can also access the private data of the class. And we studied the difference between member function and friend function. We illustrated the concept of usage of friend function with two different examples. One involving one class, that is for checking whether a given number is prime or not. Other one is involving two different classes, husband class and wife class. My sincere advice used to complete the assignment of calculating the total balance of current account and savings account using two different classes. With this, I will conclude today's session. Okay, thank you.